What's going on, guys? I picked up this trailer from Tractor Supply to use for landscaping purposes, and I wanted to mount this weed trimmer rack to the side of it, but the issue I was having was these tubes are round, unlike most trailers where they're square or rectangle shaped. So I modified the rack to fit on this trailer, and I'm going to show you how I did that in this video. What I'm doing here is just kind of lining up everything to sort of get an idea of how I'm going to do this. Just checking to see where I need to put it, where it's going to be level. And there's two sections to this rack, so I'm just sort of getting an idea of how I'm going to do it. I purchased some U-bolts from Home Depot, and I'm just lining them up over the rail and marking them where I need to drill holes into the actual rack sections so I can mount it with the U-bolts. And here I am marking them a little more carefully to make sure my holes are pretty close to perfect. I used a Sharpie marker after I measured where the center of the rail is. And here I'm using a drill press. I know it's smoking, but I am using cutting oil. And I'm not drilling at a super high speed, just slow enough with this step drill bit here, just until I find the proper size diameter. And as I'm drilling this, occasionally I'm taking the U-bolt and putting it underneath through the hole just to make sure that I've drilled the right size, not too big, not too small. I use this little C-clamp to secure the rail section to the drill press after I made sure the drill press platform was level front to back and side to side. And as you can see here, the holes line up perfectly with the U-bolt. And then what I do next is I flip the rail section over and I just use the drill again to kind of deburr the back side of the holes. I found these brackets in my scrap metal drawer. I'm not sure what they're originally for, but they ended up being perfect for this project. And here I'm lining them up, just making some measurements. I took an angle grinder with a wire wheel attachment to clean off all the paint coating on these rail sections to where I'm going to weld the bracket to the rail. And I did the same thing with the brackets themselves. I attached it to this welding table, and I'm just grinding off any coating that's on there, so I have bare metal, nice clean metal to weld to. Here I'm using a speed square just to make sure everything's going to fit nice and flush and sit nice and flat on the wood portion of the trailer. I took another C-clamp and got everything in place after I cleaned it off with the grinder. So I'm holding it nice and steady as I'm going to put the tack welds on. And I am using flux core welding in this video. So between welds, I'm just taking a grinder to it again to clean off any of the slag and debris that's built up. And to avoid the metal rubbing against the metal on the trailer from the U-bolt, I got a couple pieces of this electrical shrink tubing, and I use a little bit of dielectric grease to just make it slip on there a little easier. And then I took a heat gun to it as just sort of a protective coating between both layers of metal. And here I am with the final assembly process, putting the U-bolt through, using the plate it came with to secure the bolts onto the back side of the rail. I didn't tighten these up all the way, I just made it snug enough so that it wouldn't fall over as I'm leveling and lining up everything to screw in the bottom bolts. And once I got everything where I wanted it, I went ahead and marked my holes with a drill, and then I took a drill block, which basically just keeps the bit level up and down, side to side, just so that way my bolts are going flush and not crooked. And then I use an impact wrench to screw both bolts into the bracket. I did one more final check for level, and then I tightened up the bolts on the bottom and the bolts on the top. And for the sake of the video and time, I filmed me doing this process to one rail, but it was the exact same thing I did for both rails. And then you just space them however far apart you need them for the equipment that you're going to be mounting. Since filming this video, I've driven around quite a bit with this rack on here. Everything is still solid, still secure. I do recommend you paint the areas you welded just to keep the rust away. I'm very happy with the way this turned out. It wasn't very difficult. If you don't have a welder, you don't feel like welding, you could probably do a similar process to the bottom brackets out of wood. I'm sure something like that would work as well. Thanks for watching.